Those who don't understand basic physics, some general mechanics, leverage, basic combat theory such as the OODA loop. So this is a basic concept video, so I won't be discussing the exact ins and outs of each technique or how to train for them physically. So at the end of this video though, I will give my personal impressions of these 4 characteristics I would say define Wing Chun. So the first of 4 concepts is simultaneous attack and defense, or we can also call it stop hits. The second then would be zoning, the third would be checking, and the fourth would be the center line or distancing basically. These methodologies can be applied universally in whatever system you use, but I think the fourth is sort of like a weakness, a crux for the Wing Chun system in terms of if you were the practitioner. So starting with simultaneous attack and defense techniques. The origins of this concept I think are earliest attributed to Wing Chun, but it was popularized by the late Bruce Lee. And Wing Chun is a striking style that proceeds to dominate the confrontation by using strikes in combination with hand checking and zoning. Similar to how chess works. Combat has a flow. Bruce Lee said cadence. Others may say you're on the defensive or on the offensive. In my personal system, I try to explain the concept that there is no such thing as someone just passively defending. If he's perhaps the defending right now, and I'm the attacking party, he's still aggressively trying to take over the situation and try to still in some way actively resist me. So there's not ever a time where you're one person on the defense, one person on the offense. But since Wing Chun is a striking art, and in order to do the trapping techniques, the opponent has to be on the defensive, Wing Chun employs this idea of simultaneous attack and defense, which you can kind of think of it as turning the tide. So if you said in karate, karate might teach you this way. He attacks, and I block like this in karate, right? And then I punch. In Wing Chun, it would just be simultaneous. When he attacks, I try to do that. Okay, and it's simple enough. Now, boxing would do the same thing. You would have where if he punches, I might slip and throw like a body shot, or if he does that, I might do that. But notice how in Wing Chun, when I do this, say when he does that, I'll say he blocks, he keep jab, and I do that, and I punch. Notice how I'm trying to maintain a certain kind of squared off position here, meaning our shoulders, our chest are kind of still facing each other. In boxing, if he throws a jab and I slip, I'm completely breaking that. Like I'm turning my side to him even. So notice that when I get towards the fourth point of center line. So now for example, let's say I'm zoning this direction, meaning I'm now heading towards his outside corner, which I'll explain in zoning in the next part. In this situation, as I'm moving this way, if you already understand the basics of like how strikes form and come in terms of the convergence. So in the same way, when I'm over here now, if I'm zoning me, I'm limiting this arm. Like right now I'm on this side of the arm. Unless he wants to back fist me, he has to drop the hand down and bring it back around to punch me. Or just punch straight. But if I check it, which we'll get onto, if I check this hand by basically stopping it from this motion coming this way, probably the natural action would either be punching that hand, which I can predict it now because this hand is in control, or this hand will circle around. So I don't have to worry about now that hand coming at me in a circular fashion, so that's easy to predict, or this hand swinging back around, so long as I keep my hand on top of his hand. So maybe another way to say stop is, let's say for example he does want to drop it. Let's say I haven't made contact yet, but for him to punch me here on the outside, correct, if you're actually punching the face. Okay, you know, if from here I go ahead and in advance stop him from doing that motion by punching him. Or let's say when he comes around to do this swing, you might see this in Muay Thai where they bring the elbow in, or boxing you might do that. But the idea is rather than when he punches, me just defending, when he punches I also attack. So there's different timing here. There is when he attacks like in the original position when we're a little more squared off, I'm more on his inside. When he punches and I block and actually strike. As opposed to now, I could be preemptive about it. Let's say for example, you throw that hook. Rather than when he does the hook, me just, and you see this too, this technique, rather than when he's wait for him to complete it, I could interrupt that motion with like perhaps a strike. So if I stop this hand, he wants to throw a strike, I could just move in and push his head back and do a strike. So the idea is you're stopping the opponent's motion, you're kind of interrupting the low shin kick, or in Jeet Kune Do, like a low side kick. So this is kind of true for someone who's very skilled at this, and you see even in Ultimate Fighting, when he's attacking with his upper hands, he first has to get past my legs, which have more reach. So one of the most basic like Wing Chun techniques is when he throws a punch, I do a low shin kick. Now, same thing concept. The idea is rather than just completely backing up, I'm incorporating an attack into the motion to try to switch the tide over to now where I'm on the aggressive. So when it comes to doing a simultaneous attack or defense, a stop hit, there are two ways it can work. If, let's say for example, you've seen this too all the time. Let's say for example, okay, I just do that just to start by checking. Or you throw a jab, and perhaps I parry, right? But now that hand is coming. And maybe I throw a fast motion, I throw a fast jab. But he's already committed, he's driving forward, he's gonna throw a really wild like haymaker. You know, this is not gonna stop that. And if it registers as O loop, say he feels the pain, okay, there's that to consider. If he feels the pain, it may deter him from completing his movement, most likely not, and then you're depending on pain compliance. But let's say for example, if it's the other way that a stop hit can work is if it's actually physical, like mechanics. Like if, when this happens and he throws that swing, I punch him or push his head back so far that he loses his balance and falls back. That's mechanical, that's physics. Doesn't matter if he feels the pain, doesn't matter if it registers in this OTA loop, it creates an effect. So stop hit requires power and speed because either you're hoping that your strike is intimidating psychologically, meaning it caused pain, it caused them to react and to slow down, to stop for a second, lose a sort of like a beat in time. Or you're hoping that it has so much force that you're driving through them that it actually physically moves their body, prevents them from attacking further, from more continuous attacking. Because it doesn't matter, even if he throws a jab and let's say I did do that, doesn't matter because if this doesn't hurt, let's say he's wearing armor, okay, we're in a more intense situation, he has armor, cold weather, and it doesn't matter, maybe I just, the ground, my angle, I didn't get the force through, it doesn't really hurt him enough. Yeah, I incorporated a simultaneous attack and defense like in boxing, but there's no reason from here he couldn't just grab me because he's never passively just defending. Like he's still on the go, he's still going to attack with that hand. If this move actually pushed his hip back like that or something, then okay, now his plan has to change, that will affect his loop. So a lot of people think Wing Chun is I hear this, it's a good martial art for women, and that's just not true because, if we're looking at now, if me and him both punch each other at the exact same time or something, we clash, my timing is right, he's on the aggressive. Okay, let's say I try to do that. So 1-2. So he does a basic 1-2. So he does a 1, and I go like that. But the timing, and you see this happen. You see an ultimate fighting. Yeah. And this is real life. It happens in real life. Most time you see real life fights, sometimes a lot of people they both are taking hits until one person gets woozy, and it looks pretty messy. And that's the reality because I'm trying to even though it's simultaneous, he attacks and I punched him and I'm defending at the same time. It's the timing. It has to stop that. And there has to be a tremendous amount of force that I have to exert. Like I have to be strong. And if I try to block, that is very physically demanding because, again, if you look at basic physics and leverage, both of us are equal right now. His arm is extended, my arm is extended, so the amount of leverage is the same. But if he weighs more mass is still coming towards me. So for example, if you were a female and you were trying to do a hard block, it's hard. I mean, you have to train for that. Especially since the muscles he's using are larger muscles. I mean, he's using the pec muscles, which for most people, men, they do push-ups, bench presses, those muscles are going to be stronger than the shoulder muscle. And he also has a further distance to accelerate. So again, those are the basics I can cover in another video. But in terms of this video, this concept here is that blocking is a hard motion. It requires training and strength. Most stop hits in the Wing Chun form, style of fighting, involve some form of blocking. But what you'll see in boxing is that there's more body movement. Rather than in boxing, if he's going to throw like perhaps a rear hook. In boxing, rather than me trying to maybe block it and punch, as maybe you might do in Wing Chun, in boxing they incorporate slipping or different body motions. When you slip this way, they incorporate that because there's just so much, when it's high amount of force coming at you, a block is like not exactly what you want to do, it's sort of what you have to do when you're trying to trapped. I mean, at all moments, if you can move around, parry, and keep, prevent yourself from having to absorb so much force, it's more beneficial. But again, these motions of slipping, as I explained in the center line, that's counter of the techniques in Wing Chun. Simultaneous attack and defense, I think a person has to ask when they do a stop hit, those kind of techniques, are they maneuvering out of the way regardless? Because is their priority safety first? If my priority is to practice, he throws a jab or something and I do this, that isn't my priority. My priority is not to protect my head. My head is staying stationary. If on a slip, I'm giving him a moving target, I'm moving towards his outside, away from his hand, I'm putting a hand between his other hand. My priority is to move out of the way and to protect myself. And it's two different things to consider. In Wing Chun, most simultaneous attack and defense techniques involve a strike. And in a future video, I will discuss how there are other ways you can be aggressive without using striking specifically. I would say that Wing Chun is purely aggro. It is trying to maybe attack and he blocks, and then it's all aggro. It's me striking constantly and trying to create a situation where I'm at the advantage. Okay, see, that's what he does. I'm purposely setting him up. In Wing Chun, it's aggro. It's like, I purposely wanted him to do that. I knew because his hand was here, when I talked now next about zoning, that he was going to do a block with one of his hands. And he chose for that hand to do that, which then I can now check. Which will now begin when we go to checking. But it's constantly me striking, so it's very aggro. It's me using strikes constantly. And it's not so much me focusing on then perhaps moving out of the way of a possible strike coming at the same time. And you have to consider then which simultaneous attack and defense moves you decide to use. Most people, their pec muscle is going to be stronger than the shoulder muscle. So my ability to do this motion and to stop a full-on haymaker, you'll see there's another concept like Aikido. Aikido wouldn't stop it at this point, especially not further where the leverage, we're equal here, both of our wrists and stuff. If I bring it closer in, if I block perhaps with more of my forearm,